But I wanted to start off there. I wanted to start off with threads today because a well-stocked workshop at home, certainly in the trade, demands that you have so many of these nuts and bolts available so that you can quickly replace something you've lost or make something correct that has been incorrectly assembled prior to you touching it, or maybe the former owner did it. So all of our cars, all of the MGs, up until the introduction of the MGA, they're all British thread. British thread is not metric thread. British thread is British thread. It was developed by Dr. Whitworth, hence Whitworth threads. That was standardized pretty early on, maybe in the mid 1850s in England. And then in the very early 1920s, there was a revision of that form having to do with the size of the head on the shank, so that a 1/4 inch Whitworth is the same as a 5/16 British Standard. So it's a 1/16 of an inch of confusion. So whenever I speak about sizes, I always speak about them as British Standard sizes, not Whitworth sizes, because Whitworth is the coarse thread form of that system, and British Standard Fine is the fine thread system, or fine thread in that whole Whitworth system. Whitworth is defined pretty easily in lots of ways by a 55-degree flank angle. In other words, if you take a look at the thread and you look at it, theirs is 55 degrees, which is narrower than ours, and ours is 60. So when you get into like a 5/16 Whitworth bolt on an electrical system, it's 5/16 18. American coarse thread is also 5/16 18. And if you're winding a nut onto a copper stud, it'll work, okay? But there are places where you don't just wind something on because it works. You have to be absolutely correct. It's anything that carries power, like inside the engine. So in 1956, they went wholesale from the British Standard system over to the American Fine. Now it's not American Fine, it's really called Unified National Fine. Excuse me. Because they had to accept the American thread systems, because so much of the equipment that was sent over to England during the Lend-Lease program during World War II, of course, came with American threads. So rather than simply adopt our threads, they made threads that were 100% interchangeable, but not exactly the same as our threads. So while we might have a 5/16 24 bolt, they would say, and we'd call that SAE, theirs is 5/16 24, still with a 60-degree pitch or thread, and they call it Unified National Fine, UNF and UNC, but those are totally, completely interchangeable with American SAE or American USS, United States Standard. Of course, the brake wasn't perfect, and it wasn't perfectly clean. MGTFs used American thread on the differentials, and the first couple of hundred MGAs that came out of the line still used British thread on the brakes on the rear axle only. There's a lot of threads in the car. I mean, there's threads to define everything. When I was in England working at University Motors, one of the guys that I worked with, his dad gave me this book, and it's all British thread. You can get the big thick one, which is like 4 inches thick, but you've got to have something. And inside here we have everything from British Standard brass. I can't read it. I'm sorry. I can turn off my background, but we've got British Standard brass thread. We've got the Acme thread that is on the kingpins on a T-type and an MGA. It's got everything in it. Now, the engines and gearboxes on the T-types, you would expect, of course, to be British thread also, but they're not. They're metric. Just all the basic measurements on the X series engine, the XPAG and XPAG engine. Those are all the main bearings, 52 millimeter. They're all the basic measurements are in metric. And that dates from after World War I. Morris was making cars. He started William Morris, MG, Morris Garages. William Morris started selling bicycles, and then pretty soon it was motorbikes, and then pretty soon it was cars. And during the First World War, he lost his ability to get engines. The companies that were involved with making engines for him, for his Morris cars, were under war contract. There wasn't total war yet, introduced in this country, I think, by William Tecumseh Sherman. There wasn't total war yet. Second World War was total war. Everybody was on the war effort. But during the First World War, companies still could make the goods for the consumer. And Morris did. He continued to make motor cars, but he couldn't get engines. In fact, he bought engines from the Continental Motor Company in Muskegon, Michigan, right up the road from me. They were loaded on ships and sent over to England so he could keep up his car production. When the war ended, he went back to the firm that was doing the machining for him, Pop and White, and said, "Hey, we're back. I'm all set to go." And they said, "Sorry, sir, but we're still under contract." And he had to flail around and find someone who could machine the engines. The only firm he could find that would take on the contracts were Hotchkiss. Hotchkiss was a French manufacturer, ostensibly making surveying equipment in England during World War I. It was really making machine guns. And they were happy. They were happy to do all the stuff to the cylinder blocks and crankshafts and do all that machining, but all their measurements, everything was metric. So they pondered for a while and decided to go ahead and do this. And then the question came up, well, if it's a metric engine, it's going to have metric fasteners. And what are we going to tell the mechanics out here in the field in England? That they have to buy another set of wrenches? French wrenches? Not going to happen. So they came up with a system which has got lots of good names, Nuffield's Mad Metric bolts, where the shank of the screw, the shank is 10 by 1.5 or 8 by 1.00, whatever it is. But the head that's on it, that's British. So your British wrenches will fit. Now, fortunately, when you go to rebuild a T-type engine, a 8 millimeter bolt that you get at the hardware store, 8 by 1.00, has got a 13 millimeter head on it, and that is within several thousandths of an inch of 5/16 BSF, which would be the size of the head that would be on that if it were an original bolt. And that's 0.525 across flats, not 0.500. So anyway, you can get some bolts that fit, but things like cylinder head nuts, it's a dead giveaway. You look at a T-type engine, there's nuts on there, they work just fine, but you know they're from a metric supplier. They're not really British Standard on the outside, metric on the inside. They still perform the function. Lucas kept everything British Standard until in Whitworth until 1969, and they made the wholesale leap to there goes my mute button. They made the wholesale leap to American thread, to metric thread. So they went from British to metric, never having gone through American thread. That's what you read. But I'll tell you, I've taken a lot of little stuff apart, and there's a lot of American thread inside some Lucas items. Go figure. There are other threads. There are threads on the light bulbs. There are threads on the bottle closure caps. You know, they didn't just make a bottle with a top on it that fits only that. It follows along with a system of threads that's standardized across the world. Everything that carries oil or water or gasoline is British Standard pipe thread. They usually think of pipe thread as being a taper thread, you know, a taper thread. But pipe doesn't have to be a taper thread. All lamps are made with pipe thread, and those are parallel threads. And most of the British Standard pipe threads go to your oil cooler, the banjo bolts on the fuel pump or on the carburetor, and fittings around the gas tank, on the radiator. All those are British Standard pipe. So lots of cool stuff, and lots of little places you can get buggered up. When they changed from the TF to the MGA and went from completely British thread to completely American thread with exceptions, the gear shift lever was still the same lever on an MGA as it is on the T-type. The thread on the top of that is metric, 8x1.00 metric. So the only 5 threads in an MGA, Barney's on here, he'll call me out on this, he'll tell me where I'm wrong, but the only 5 metric threads on an MGA are the 4 spark plugs and the gear shift knob. So lots of fascination. You yourself want to have at your disposal a tap and die set for American thread if you've got an MGB or a midget, anything, an MGA. It's awfully handy to have a British tap and die set if you've got an MGA or earlier. Why an MGA if it's all American thread? Because there's still British thread left around in there. If you have a T-type, absolutely, you got to have it along with that metric set. And only the one thread in that engine is what people call French metric, but metric is French, so that is redundant. But it's a finer thread. ISO metric demands a 1.25 pitch on an 8mm shank, whereas our T-type engines have 1.00, a 1.00 pitch. It's a finer pitch. Now, all the little screws in the car that you thought until tonight were 1032, and thank goodness 1032 works, aren't. They're really 2BA. So there's yet another system for smaller threads called BA, British Association. So these are, just to make it even more fun, these I think are fractional shanks with a metric pitch, something like that. So the only 2 that are really involved heavily in the car, you can find all of them, are 2BA, which is the same as 1032. Thank you. And 4BA, which has a lot to do with the carburetors. If you've got something earlier than an MGB, or you got a Bug-Eye Sprite, something with H-type carburetors or Triumph. The carburetors have got the greatest combination of threads in them of any part of the car. So you might find American coarse and American fine on the engine and British Standard pipe and metric for the spark plugs. And that's about it. But in the carburetors, we've got British Standard brass thread. That's always 26 threads per inch. Those are those dampers that screw in on the top of suction chambers. That's British Standard brass thread. Then we've got we've got 3/16 Whitworth threads that hold the suction chamber onto the body and the float bowl lids on the MGBs and midgets. Or if we got T-type, then we got British Standard fine that holds the float bowl lid onto the float bowl. On the underside of the car, we've got British Standard pipe again, or not, I guess we haven't had it yet, to hold the banjo bolt, goes up in there. We've got British Standard brass again. If it's a T-type, or excuse me, an MGB engine, and you're trying to put the jet nut into the bottom of the float bowl. And we've got BA threads on the coupling, on the interconnecting linkages. So there's a lot of thread. There's just a lot of thread in those carburetors. Usually they don't have to be cleaned up. Usually they're okay. But the problem is, if you need something that's 4BA, you won't find it at Ace Hardware. 2BA, you can get the 1032 and get close enough. But 4BA, you need some kind of replacement. So that's why MG owners are always cautioned never to throw away old parts, because someplace on that old part is the piece that you'll need tomorrow. If you throw it away today, you know you'll need it tomorrow. So just store it in some way that takes up as little space as you can. You got to try to use your brain to keep track of where some of that stuff goes. There are great big threads on the back of the MGA rear axle, in the early MGB, the tubed type axles. There's, I think it's about a 24, 26 thread per inch. I've got a die for one side, the right-hand thread. I don't have the die for the left-hand thread, because to get that, I was going to have it made. And I think it was going to cost me $400 or something. And fortunately, the guy who needed it in Pittsburgh, who was hitting the end of his axle with a hammer as he was putting on the rear hub, mushed the threads. And although you can get a thread file to help restore the threads, there's nothing quite like a brand new, nothing quite like a die to spin over the threads to restore them to their original size. Then there are right hand and left hand threads. On a T-type and an MGA, the nut that holds the front hub on tightens in the direction of wheel rotation. That makes sense. Something comes loose and something starts to move. You want it to tend to tighten, not to loosen. But of course, that wreaks havoc. I expect Moss sells way more left-hand side front hub nuts for T-types than they do right-hand sides. Because if you put a breaker bar on that and unscrew it until it's free, you've just run all the threads off the nut. So fortunately, the stub axles are hardened, and the nut fails before the stub axle does. On an MGB rack and pinion, there's a huge nut that goes on there. It's a 1 inch. I've got that die. A 1 inch, I don't know, 1 by, it's pretty fine thread. Might be 1 inch 24 or something or other. Huge, huge die to put on the end of the rack to make sure that when you thread the inner tie rod end assemblies in, that they go on okay. So there's not one place where all this stuff is located, but if you run into a jam, just remember that generally speaking, if it's a B or a midget or an A, it's all American thread. Rarely is it coarse thread. And anything having to do with the water, the oil, gasoline is a British thread, British Standard pipe. And arm yourself accordingly. So I hope we've got some items in our chat section here. Oh, we do. So So anyway, we'll start there pretty soon. Any comments about threads?
Yeah, hey, John,
Yes.
Ron here.
Yeah.
The plug on the differential of the 74B, it's a square wrench apparently, but it's terribly worn out. I replaced it with a Moss.
You might have frozen. You replace it with a Moss one, and the Moss might have had, the only one they might have had would be the 1980 drain plug, which has got a hex on the inside of it. Right at the very end of production, 1980, they put a hex on the inside. Yeah, Ron, you're still frozen, but for those of you who are trying to get those nuts out that have got takes a giant square, that's a 7/16 square. It's common for drain plugs. You can take a a little tiny weeny half-inch extension and grind away on two of the flats so it fits, or you can buy the proper one at the auto parts store and it'll fit right up in there, and then you can use a breaker bar to be able to unscrew that. So.
Okay,
John,
Yes. Tony.
John, you could also go to a hardware store and get a piece of bar stock that you can put in that, and then you can take, like, I just use a big crescent wrench on it. Been doing that for 50 years. My boss at the gas station wouldn't buy the proper tools. He made one up. It's called bar stock.
Just 7/16 bar stock or
Yep.
half inch and grind it down or something. So, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very cool.
Yep.
When there aren't any questions, then I fear that I've bored everybody with my comments about threads. I could talk about those all day. Someday I'll talk about the history of the gallon. That's probably even worse. So, but remember
Hey,
that.
John?
Yes.
I got a comment for you on the drain plug wrench.
Yes.
The one you're calling 7/16, it's a female socket. It's actually slightly tapered.
Yes.
I just pick up at a swap meet, 3/8 to half-inch drive adapter for about $1, and then you just grind a slight taper on the end of it until it fits right in that plug.
Yeah.
You've got a drain plug socket. It's the same size as any other socket in your toolkit.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you. What size is that Whitworth thread? Is that 60 millimeter on an MGA? You know?
And it's smaller. I think it's 50.
Oh, okay. The big one, the Jag one, I think is 75, but anyway, okay, all right. That's all a lot of bizarre knowledge here. So anyway, if you've got a question that you'd like to pose, put it over in the chat section, and we'll start with Tom Weisel. Is mounting a Protronics pickup in my Lucas 25D an upgrade from my points? Well, let me say, Tom, why don't you?
Yeah, hi, John.
Yeah, where are you weighing in from?
Telford, Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia.
Okay, how much snow do you guys have?
0. Yeah, we got enough rain that took away the inch we got.
Okay. So I'm not keen on electronic ignition myself, but there are places where it can help out a lot. If your distributor, the shaft in the distributor that goes right up through the center of the shaft, which is 4.490 inches in diameter, it could have been half an inch, but then that would have meant you could buy the bushings anywhere. And Lucas wanted to make sure you had to buy their bushings. So they made their shaft 0.490. Anyway, when that gets wobbly, and instead of just turning, it'll wobble also. So when it wobbles, it can throw your timing off. Two of the cylinders will fire early, two of them will fire late, by a couple of degrees. If you put Protronics in, that'll cover that. That'll take care of that. The real solution, of course, is to send your original distributor off to one of those two places that I tout here.
Which I've done, yep.
Okay, well, Both those guys are pretty keen on points. I like points because you get warning. Now, that said, you can have a complete
I do.
condenser failure,
Oh, okay.
but points are great. And when the points start to close up, then you lose your timing. And you know something's wrong. The car's sluggish. It's harder to start. Tough going up hills. And you go, what's going on? You get some warning. The electronic ignition is it either works or it doesn't work. It never works part way. It works or it doesn't. So when it quits working, there's no way to make it work again. Prayers, curse words, nothing helps. So if you do have electronic ignition, if you do want that, then carry a second one in your glove box along with a screwdriver so that you can pull the whole top plate off, or that you can change that pickup real quickly. And sometimes that's difficult to do on the side of the road, especially when you're introducing that Bertronics into an older distributor because of the placement of the screws. So, but have a second one. If you're going to do it, get a second one. The racers don't like them because they put out some kind of, I don't know, some kind of interference or something at really high RPMs. I mean, we're talking 6,000 RPMs, not where most of us drive. And you can get misfiring from that. But Bertronics is about the best one that there is. Their failure rate is very small. I had 2 of them fail on my own car in 1 week, so I'm kind of sour on it. But you know, my only advice is if you're going to do it, get 2, and then the points will never close up. The timing, the dwell will never change, and the timing will never change. It's fixed. You know.
Yeah, I have a spare setup in the trunk, and I'm down to 10 minutes to swap out distributors. So
Sure.
I'd like to get it because I know it's much more uniform on the dwell. I just think it gives a more uniform. That's my thinking. Less variation.
Well, there's a consideration in ignition called the firing angle. So if your number 1 cylinder, which is what you're timing from, it should be the same as your number 4 cylinder if you were to switch your timing light from one to the other. But when you put these distributors on a distributor machine and you look at the firing angle, you might be plus or minus a couple of degrees at each point. On 2, 3, and 4. And when you're trying to get the most amount of energy you can out of the car, you're looking for consistency. Each cylinder has to do exactly the same as the other cylinders in sequence. And that's the advantage of the Bertronics, is that you're not working off a hardened cam that was ground 60 or 80 years ago. You're dealing with just a punched piece of plastic, you know, and that firing angle is going to be absolutely 0, 90, 180, 270 over and over and over, and it's never going to change.
But all 4 plugs fire in one rotation of the rotor. Isn't that correct? All 4
Yes.
plugs. Yes. Right. Yep. Okay. I'm leaning towards it. But I have a spare in the trunk, so cool.
Yeah, I
Thank
carry a whole extra distributor with me with a cap and wire, everything, so that, you know, you don't, I mean, if you're on a country road and it's pretty and there's birds chirping and little lambs bleeding out in the field, that's one thing. But if you're on I-95 in a snowstorm, you don't want to be doing any diagnostics, you know, so.
No. Yeah.
John,
Thank
I've been using a 700D crane, and for over 30 years I've had it, no problems ever. In fact, my friend got me a 123 ignition, so I took the crane and put it in my GT, and still it's been over 30 years. But I do carry in each car an extra distributor, all complete. You just never know.
I mean, you can have a screw that rattles out from the contact breaker plate and get down inside the distributor, and one of those weights coming around, kicks it out and blows the whole side of the distributor out. And then it quits work. I mean, there's no end to the possibilities. You should carry a spare of everything, but then all of a sudden it's like you're Barney driving around with that half of another MGA behind you. So it's there's a limit to how much you can carry, but an extra distributor doesn't take up much room. It's expensive, a couple $100 to have one sitting there, but it's really, really handy. That and a water pump, the fan belt, hoses, that kind of stuff. It's real nice. Okay. The time we answered that. All right, Peter Koreski. John, I'm replacing my exhaust and inlet gasket on my 77 MGB. I've heard that the soft side goes against the block and the metal side goes out. Plus, what should I use? Should I use 2 gaskets? What do you recommend? What I recommend, Peter, unmute yourself and weigh in here.
Okay, yeah, I'm here in Virginia.
Okay, and I know you guys had snow a week ago, and your new governor got blamed for not getting the roads cleaned fast enough, but he wasn't the governor yet. So.
No, he'll probably get blamed for a lot of stuff because he just became the governor. It took me 4 hours just to do my driveway today because it was ice and snow, and I had a snowblower.
Oh my gosh. So anyway, what kind of inlet and exhaust do you have on your 77B? Is it original or?
No, I have headers on there, and actually I'm getting them coated right now by Jet Hot in North Carolina, and got a pretty good deal on it. So it's to be like they call it clear choice on it, and it's lifetime guarantee. So I'm gonna have that done. So I'm putting that on. So I want to know, what type do I double my gaskets up? And I've heard that the soft side should go against the block and the metal side against the head, against the header.
The way that we always installed them was with the soft side towards the cylinder head,
Okay.
and the aluminum part towards the manifolding.
Okay.
But the newer gaskets are perforated. You look at them, you go, dude, isn't that going to leak? Look at it. I mean, isn't it? I mean, there's all those little perforations on the metal side. Originally, the gaskets were smooth on both sides, but at the introduction of the 1975 model year, then the factory started producing gaskets that were soft, as you say, on one side, and that had that aluminum on the other side. And that's what's left now. You can always take some high temperature silicone and dab it on there. Although usually that stuff is orange and it's offensive to look at. The reason I asked if you were using your original manifold is because all the original manifolds warped to one degree or another. So the best thing you can do before reinstalling a manifold, if it's all the way off the car, is to take it to someone with a belt sander that's long enough that you can put that thing on the belt sander and sand it smooth so that everything on the contact side of the manifold is making contact. You've got a nice flat face that then you can sandwich, two parallel faces, and you sandwich that gasket, then you won't have any problems at all.
Yeah, I have just the headers on there right now. It's for the new exhaust system because I put a Weber carb on it.
Okay.
So do you recommend 2 gaskets or just 1? Because I think I've had a problem with 1 before.
Well, I would take that when that exhaust comes back, I take it to someone who's got a long enough belt sander that's smooth. The machine shop has that stuff. Like, oh my God, there's another $150. and just make sure it's absolutely, you can tell right now if it's smooth, but you don't know if it's flat. And that's what causes the problem. I mean, you got those clamps, but there's, you know, only the nuts out on the outside of the manifold, exhaust manifold, and then you've got those 4 big heavy washers that hold the intake manifold and the exhaust manifold in place, and they aren't strong enough to bend the metal into position. So start with the metal in position, or just take a straight edge and just lay it across there. And if you have any vagaries at all, or one of the flanges seems a little tipped, just a little teeny bit tipped, get it surfaced.
Yes, I took my, the headers, I was looking at it, and I saw a little bit of exhaust, like an exhaust edge on it. And I sanded that down, and I don't know, I think that I was getting a slight exhaust leak on it. Now, are you saying I should sand the headers and the intake, or just the headers?
The intakes are almost always okay. It's the header where it meets
Okay.
up against the head. So you've got to have someone who's got a belt sander and a flat bed, because that's the whole point here.
Yeah.
You know, who can, you know, it's a sort of a 2-person project, one person with his hands on it and the other person holding the other end of the exhaust up out of the way, sort of, and run that thing along on that belt sander and make sure that you've got it absolutely flat.
Oh, I wish I would have heard about that before I brought it down to that jet hot and had it done.
Oh, it's, yeah.
Hi.
You can
Hi,
make,
how are you?
you can.
Well,
you
I'm
can-
on my MG.
You can make, I'm gonna hit
Yes.
mute all here,
How was skiing today?
and then Peter, you can open yourself back up there, sorry.
Okay, got it.
Yep, so anyway, but every now and then when we had a problem, we double gasket something and use high temperature silicone between the gaskets. But the gasket doesn't move much. And if the surfaces are parallel, you won't have any trouble.
Okay.
John,
All right,
Yeah.
thanks a lot.
can I offer a suggestion, a simple way for people to check that manifold for being flat?
Sure.
A piece of plate glass or a piece of marble, something that's totally flat. Take 2 pieces of 220 grit sandpaper, wet them, stick them down there, hold the thing down, and just gently rub it back and forth, making sure you're getting flat contact on that where the manifold attaches to, you know, makes contact with the block, and you'll see right away if it's wearing unevenly. And if it is, that's when you want to get it surfaced.
Okay, so we got the plan. You got to get the wife out of the house, and then you take her $12,000 granite kitchen top and put down those pieces of sandpaper, and it could easily be a 2-person project.
Yeah, you could just get a piece of plate glass or something that's flat.
Sure, got it.
It's a simple.
Well, you're saying that what is the sanding could be my bad surface. If it's all sanded evenly, then it's a good surface.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. We're not suggesting that you repair it in that manner, because you'll end up with it bowed. It's like going at it with a file. You can't make it flat. But you can tell right away. Another way would be to, again, on a flat piece of, just have strips of paper. And if you can move, you know, holding it down tightly, again, this is almost a 2-person project, but holding it down tightly against the tabletop, if you can slip a piece of paper, and while the other ones are tight, you know it's not flat. It's not flat.
Yeah.
You got a low spot or a high spot. So,
Okay, great. I'll do so. Thanks a lot.
Jonathan, thanks for that hint. That's a real good idea. Okay, so now we're on to Mr. Hurston. Oh, here we go. Congratulations to your son and your family on his impending nuptials. My son is 34 by the time I was 34, I'd already been married twice. Once to his mother. One of them was his mother. That was my real longtime wife. Yeah, kids, it seems like they're getting a lot older now. Anyway, Mr. Hurston, can you unmute yourself and come in with us here?
Good evening, all.
Okay. All right, so he asks, what are your thoughts on the pros and cons of soda blasting versus dipping when doing a full restoration? So let's expand that out a little bit and even include sandblasting, because that's the more common way. So where are you calling from?
Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Okay, all right. So the old fashioned way of getting stuff roughed up so that it will accept new paint is sandblasting. Sandblasting works great. If it's a little too much pressure, you can warp the metal. I know on T-type MGs, big flat panels that cover the engine, you can put a ripple in those pretty easily if the pressure is too high when you're sandblasting. But again, if you know what you're doing, that works okay. If you have anything that moves, pivots, or has a trapped area in it, it will fill up with sand, or it'll get it into whatever is moving. So you can't sandblast anything that moves. If you get like, we were talking about MGB rear brakes last time. There's a lever back there to push the shoes apart. That we decided in the end that if you get those mixed up, then your handbrake isn't going to work well enough. We have yet to find out if whoever was talking about that moved those around and that was successful. Anyway, even that you don't want to sandblast because you can't get the sand out of it. If it's just a piece, if it's just one fender, hey, you're all right. But if you're sandblasting the body on an MGB, oh my gosh, you cannot get the sand out of it. It will not come out. And therefore, it's always going to be trapped inside there, and it's always going to absorb some water from time to time. And it's not hydroscopic. I mean, it does not attracting water chemically, but it's still a place for moisture to sit. And for the next 3 years, every time you park the car and go back out to it, there'll be a little tiny pillar of sand underneath the car someplace that's just sifted out. It's a mess. It's a horrible mess. So then along came the guys that would dip your car. So that was pretty cool. And again, you've got areas that are trapped, so that dipping caustic solution would get inside there, take off whatever protection was inside this closed area. And unless you got back in there by drilling holes and fogging the inside of it with some kind of rust preventive, heavy oil or gooey rust proofing compounds, then you can end up with a problem there. Also, dipping, I'm told, never had it done, dipping takes the seam sealer off between joints. There's a lot of seam sealer in that car. It's surprising when it's gone. But again, you just get out some like super duper painter's caulk and just go over and seam seal everything so that all the joints are sealed against water and getting corrosion. Soda blasting is newer, although it's been around for a while. It doesn't wreak as much havoc with the metal as sandblasting does, nor does dry ice. There's dry ice blasting. Of course, there's a price tag that comes along with all this kind of stuff. The last time I looked for a soda blaster in Grand Rapids, I couldn't find one. Found a guy, well, buddy used to do it. Well, yeah, but I'm looking for somebody who does do it. Like, I can bring something over now. And then the advantage is that it's water soluble. So if you do get it wet, why would you get it wet after you've cleaned it? If you get it wet, it just washes away, unlike sand. So there's a plus and minus of doing all this stuff, and you can hand strip it. just go out and buy gallons of zip strip and a paintbrush and turn on the game or turn on the Beatles or something and just listen and just work with it, because zip strip will take all that stuff off. But
One of the things that I'm looking for though is rust removal. Before I start actually getting into, the metal work.
well, the dipping won't take the rust off. It'll highlight it, because all of a sudden you're left with very nearly nothing. But sandblasting is dirty and easy. Sandblasting. So,
John, can you hear me?
yes,
This is Pete with the 77 MGB. I'm up in northeastern PA, just north of Mr. Hurston here. My MG was Swiss cheese, and it was soda blasted. Unfortunately, the person who did it did not cover the wiring all over the place, or it gets everywhere. Like you say, John, it gets everywhere, whether it's soda or it's sand. I'm still, 5 years later, closing my doors and opening my doors, and it falls on my feet.
yep,
From but what I found happened is with the soda, it corroded all my anything that was brass. All the brass connectors on the wiring got corroded because of the soda. I don't know if there's a chemical reaction there with soda and brass, or bronze, or copper, I guess. And to a point where actually I replaced the whole wiring in the car, because I was going nuts. I was running after my tail, and I was finding out that there was all sorts of connectors that were just filled, especially the ones where you got 4 or 5 connectors in them, and they plug into another one. Some of them in there were filled with the soda, and there was no more contact that was being made. So it got to a point where I said, okay, that's it. The wiring's got to come out. But they did the whole car like that. I mean, I knew rockers on it and everything, and it was to take out the rust, and it worked well. Don't get me wrong, it worked well, but I'm still finding soda.
Well, I guess I don't know if it's an advantage or not, but the shell is completely stripped. So that's the advantage. I wouldn't likely compromise other components other than just the steel shell itself.
Okay, yeah, in my case, and it's not, I say they because it was done by someone else. They had left the wiring loom. They typed it all up with plastic around it, but I mean, when you're sandblasting, it's so fine, it's going to get in to everywhere. So like John was saying, though, everything that moves, you got to be careful. It's the best way to do it. You bring it down to bare metal, and you start from scratch. I mean, I think that blasting it's the best way, and probably they're doing it on boats too, fiberglass boats and so on and so forth. Now the soda seems to be the way to go with the blasting.
Roger. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
when you talk to those soda guys, they'll show you some microscopic view of the metal after it's been hit with sand or with soda. And when it looks like it's been sand, it looks like the surface of the moon. And when it's been hit by soda, it looks as, smooth as a baby's butt. So, the damage done to the metal is less with the soda.
Correct.
Hey,
John?
Yes.
with the soda, I used to do a lot of blasting for the military shelters, and I used to do it with walnuts. That's what we used quite a bit. And with soda, you have to do a lot of post work because it gets into the metal in such a way that you have to take it off with a type of vinegar concept and get it out of there. Otherwise, you'll never be able to paint the car. It'll be really hard to paint it. Plus soda, when like he was saying that it corroded ends and stuff, anything that soda stays on, it attracts humidity, and that's where it'll cause a lot of corrosion. So we never, in the shelters, we never used soda. We didn't use sand. We used walnut shells, and that did a we did it on aluminum and it didn't warp it or anything like that. It worked out quite well. And I do not recommend soda blasting whatsoever unless you have somebody who can do a lot of post work on it afterwards.
Thanks.
John,
Thank you.
Dave Sirota. Hey, for whatever it's worth, soda blasting was originally designed for aircraft use for strip and paint, and it is no longer accepted for aircraft use because the soda gets into the grains of the aluminum and causes corrosion. So I can't speak to how it works on steel, but it's not recommended for aluminum.
Well, corrosion was the big issue with mine, with the soda. I mean, it was everywhere and it got into anything that had a little wire in it, that was copper, it was corroded.
So it looks like, Mr. Hurston, it looks like soda blasting's out.
Well, I think he's right with the walnut. The walnut seems to be, there's other media also, there's glass bead and so on and so forth, but walnut's probably your least expensive and probably the better way to go.
Now, it's you know, glass bead is still sand, right? I mean, it's just how fine is it? So,
Lot to think about and a lot of variances there. Thanks so much for the input.
hey, you're welcome. Oh, when you finally get it done and have it sandblasted, if you got a rotisserie, if you can do that and turn the engine and turn the body over and just a blowgun and just you blow in everything and you turn it and you blow and you turn it and still you get those little pillars of sand when you're all done. But anyway, okay. Tom's story says, how do I contribute? I don't have a PayPal account. Well, let's see, I don't want to pass up this opportunity. So it seems to me that you can go into PayPal and you can use your charge card. But then I think your charge card gets hit because it's like a cash advance. You treat it, I'm not sure. I don't know. Tom's story, I don't know. You can also send me a check in the mail, make my mailman work. I just picked up the mail the other day and I thought, the USPS for almost all its function is an adjunct advertising arm to American industry. All you get anymore are ads. And I thought someone should start a letter writing campaign. Remember letters? They did that in England. Anyway. Okay. And John Tershak, don't have PayPal, also don't, yeah, okay. Well, you can always put a check in the mail. Thank you. Where on your website is the tune-up guide? If it's not under forms, I can't, let me call up my website and just take a look at it. Resources, I think it's maybe under resources. No, it's not under resources. Forms, under forms. We got, yep, it's under forms. So there's a ribbon at the top of my PayPal page and it's got a bunch of stuff on it. Join our newsletter, which is how you get the information about this one, and forms. It isn't as bad as a technical handbook on a modern car, though, when you want to figure out how to reset the clock. I mean, help me out. Wouldn't you look under C for clock? No, they might have it under R for reset, or anyway, you got to look under forms on that top ribbon. So, Dave's iPad. Do you have a YouTube about installing MG transmission mounts? So Dave, asking about the gearbox mounts. You can unmute yourself and come on in if you're here. If you're just listening, you can't come in. But I do have a YouTube video about putting on the mounts, because there are 6 pieces in there almost always, And so there are 3 pieces. Each piece can go on one way. So that's 2, 4, 8. There's at least 8 different combinations, and only one of them is correct. But I do have a YouTube video about that. I do, Dave. So, okay, Greg Fisher. Greg, why don't you unmute yourself here? Okay,
Yes.
Here we go. All right, so there's your B in the background. That's the one that's I'm in the middle of a complete nut and bolt restoration of my original 78B. Just did a chrome bumper conversion and would love to see your session that I missed on the steps of a restoration seminar you did at the end of 2021. Oh, when do you think you'll have that up on YouTube? Oh, well, soon. I say soon. I'm going to Alabama. I'm going to Alabama, and that's catch-up time. Not like mustard and relish, but catch-up, like I'm going to catch up doing all the stuff that I was supposed to be doing over this past year. At least that's my plan. So I will try to get all this stuff sorted out on YouTube, and I will try to get that restoration sequence up there. It does, the restoration book does read, to reassemble, merely reverse the disassembly procedure. But there's a lot of information there that's handy. So.
Well, I stripped this thing down. I was the original owner of the unit, or the car. I bought it in '78 off the lot at 20 years old, and I still have it. It has sat for 36 years in my garage or so, and I stripped it down to nothing, going along the same lines of these other guys, sent it off to a paint guy who I think he used some kind of zip strip or something. He didn't sandblast it. Took it down to bare metal, repainted it, bottom and top. He had it for 2 years because of COVID. I just got it back 2 weeks ago, and that's what you see. He did the bumper conversion kit for me, and now I'm beginning to reassemble. Wiring harness was off. The whole thing is just down to nothing. So it's just a long process. It'll probably be another 2 years before I get back together. Just a lot of work. And so I was just curious to see if there were anything in that. I just happened to miss it that night, and I wanted to see what was going on. So
I just did that on my daughter's 73 BGT, which is not remarkably undifferent than yours. And of course, I put in all the lines and all the electrics first, but I think I put the lines in first and then followed with the electrics. When you're working underneath the car, there's that long run of brake lines, fuel lines, and emission canister lines. I'm going to hit mute all here, not because I don't like you all, but there we go. Greg, you can unmute yourself again. Underneath the car, back down in there, that was the most difficult part. But getting that stuff into place, that's what I did. There isn't a 1, 2, 3 book that I know of, I think the best advice that I heard here was, if you're taking the car apart, take a picture every time you take something out, then just play it backwards, and just put it all back together the way you took it apart. But
yeah, I've got a pretty good idea how I want to put it back together. And I think you're right. The electrical's got to go in first. I get this beautiful body back, and the doors don't have any of the latches or anything. So I started to do a little bit of that just so I can open and shut a door without it swinging back open again. And so I'm doing some of that, but then I've got to jump to the electrical, put the dashboard back in, and I'm redoing the dash.
Did you get a new wiring harness, or are you keeping your old one?
I'm keeping my old one. I looked at it very closely. It's in pretty good shape. The car has 50,000 original miles. I parked it I think when my wife got pregnant with our first daughter, and that was in 1985, and it was parked in the garage ever since. I ran out of money and time, and finally getting to near retirement and think this is a good time to start playing with it. So I started about 2.5 years ago with this thing, and
John,
here we
John
are.
said the magical word is you can't take enough pictures.
No, I took quite a few, but there's obviously lots of things I forgot. But that's why resources like this are good, and some local MG clubs and guys that have seen this stuff inside out and backwards. It's all very.
I'll tell you, one of the handiest things you can do is find somebody up and down the street with a 78 MGB and park it next to yours. Because, you know, you go, oh my God, which way does this go on? Does it go this way, or does it go this way? Or does, you know, does that cable run in front of this line, or does the line run in front of the cable? What difference does it make? You know, it's form and function, right? But if you're doing it, you know,
You want to do it right.
Yeah.
So I've got I bought a 73 donor car when I started this project, and it was just a rust bucket, but it had all the parts, had a running motor and transmission. And that's what I've got parked next to it now. And I'm kind of swapping parts where needed. I don't have a lot of parts I need. I'm just trying to underskirt some local smog rules so I can put a nice runnable engine in it.
Where are you?
Southern California.
Oh boy, you got it. Oh boy, God. Oh yeah.
So I'll end up with a 73 MGB when I'm done. Like I said, I bought a 78 off the lot, but it'll be a 73 when I'm done. And but it'll look like a 78 that's been customized quite a bit. It'll be registered as 73. It has all the parts of a 78 dash on it and stuff like that. But
looks real nice.
Resources like this, we're having fun. I'm just having a great time with it. It takes you back to your youth when my very first car was a 65 midget, and this was my second MG, and I bought that when I was, like I said, I was 20. I'm 63 now, so.
You just got to keep working at it, but you know that you can't. That's one of the real interesting things about restoration is that it goes in fits and starts. You say, oh, I'm going to spend every Tuesday night on it. Well, you can't, and if you just do that, you'll never get it done because there aren't enough Tuesday nights. And then there's another time. Sometimes you got a buddy and he's restoring his, so you work on yours one day and then you work on his another day. You end up drinking beer too much, and nothing that ever gets done. There's all kinds of things that change and reverses that come along, and then there's just your interest. I mean, sometimes it just evaporates for a while, and then you just got to keep it nice and clean and neat. One of my standard lines is don't take anything off the car until you're prepared to take care of it right then. Don't take the tail lamp off until you've already got whatever you're going to use to restore it. You're going to put in new bulbs, you're going to put a new gasket on it, you're going to put a new lens on it. You got everything is there with that, and it's all done and all wrapped up in a nice piece of plastic so it can wait. I don't know. I saw Ron on here earlier, visited Ron. How long you been working on your car, Ron? Do you dare say? Ron from Pasadena?
Okay, my audio doesn't cut out. Gosh, it's been, okay, so we brought it out of mothballs about 2 years ago. And when you came out, what you're saying fits and starts. I mean, it's time is what it's all about. I'm up that's 250 miles north of where the car is right now. I have to go back down to work on it. So, it's slow, but it's coming along and it's a lot of fun.
Yep, it is a lot of fun, and I'm trying to commit to doing at least something on it 3 days a week. If nothing, just little things, and just keep plugging away at it. And I've got a further question on down. I might as well just ask it now so you don't have to go back to me later. The push rods, I pulled them out of the motor thinking I was going to replace them, so I didn't mark where they go. How critical?
It isn't. Just put them back. You got new, do you have new lifters? Or are you using the old
I'm gonna
lifters?
I'm gonna get new lifters. I haven't decided yet, but I mean,
Then
initially when I pulled them out, I said I'm gonna go all new, but then things get expensive. So, I'm looking
so
at.
you can use those. You can interchange them. We're back to the piece of flat glass. Roll them on the tabletop. Take them in the kitchen when your wife's watching TV, and roll them all on the nice slate top there, and just make sure they're not bent. That's all.
Right. I mean, I've had this thing in storage for so long that I was just worried that I'd have to just rebuild everything. Yet it's like I said, it's only got 50,000 original miles on that motor.
Well,
And,
yeah, but it's there's age, there's use, there's abuse, there's neglect, there's age. All those things come into effect. I wouldn't put anything back on the car unless you took it apart first.
Yep.
That's what I did in my daughter's car. I had everything apart: the engine, the gearbox, the wiper motor, the differential.
Yeah, I watched that YouTube on that. That's a beautiful car. You did a great job with it. Great.
And the
job.
brakes squeal. Oh, speaking of that, Bob, tell me. Every time I talk to you, I have to ask you again because my poor little brain can't remember. Bob and Gloria, what are those brake pads?
Duralast, and you get them from AutoZone. There's Duralast and Duralast Gold. I just get the Duralast. Lifetime warranty. When they wear out, they give you another set. And I never had any squeal from them. And I've been using them for years.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, because my daughter called me. She goes, "Oh, Dad, I can't drive my car." She said, "I said, why? Oh my God, what's the matter?" She goes, "It's just too embarrassing." And she says, "Unless I put my foot into it real hard, and then it doesn't squeal. But that light braking is it's awful." So I told her
I thought the squeal came from the vibration behind the pad and the piston. And
it does, but there are pads that don't squeal ever, like the original pads with asbestos, and there are aftermarket pads that seem to squeal no matter what you do. Okay. So and we had a big discussion 2 months ago maybe, and Bob weighed in with these brake pads that he said, just off the shelf, and they don't squeal for him, and he got a lifetime guarantee with them. As though anybody except Bob goes through a set of brake pads and the like. So
can't beat that.
So you're the one that got me started on this, John, at the San Diego North American MG Club meet. And I was just trying to test the water. Do I really want to get into this project? And that got me started back in 17, I think it was. I don't know, 18.
Yeah, I think that was 17 because the MGA meet was up in Solvang, and then we went back down to San Diego, to La Jolla. No, not La Jolla, to Coronado.
Yep, that area there. Yep, that was that's where I went. And right after that, a week later, I bought the parts car, and there she began. It's been fun. It's great time.
Great. I talked to a guy. I talked to a guy the other day, and he bought a TD. He said a lifelong goal. He wanted to have a TD, and I was asking him. I said, "Well, how handy are you?" I mean, that's an open-end question, And he goes, "Well, I'm a heart surgeon." Okay. Okay. But I said, remember, this stuff doesn't heal itself, So yeah, it's just lots of fun. So, okay, Dale Brown, I have a question about sourcing MG parts from Canada with the border essentially closed. So Dale Brown.
Hi, John.
So I mean, you just put something in a box, you can send it in a box, can't you? I haven't sent anything to
Well-
Canada in a long time, but
Well, here, can you hear me okay?
yes.
Okay, well, I've been, besides my 69 and my 72, which I still drive every day, I've been working on a 73 GT for about 12 years.
Okay.
But it was all stripped down, the body's like brand new, everything else. I'm rebuilding every component and I have the 1995 3.4 liter fuel injected Chevy Camaro V6 engine, transmission, a big racing brake kit, stuff like that. But the shock absorbers were from the original car and they were weak. And I had bought a 71 GT parts car, which was rusted out, but it was low mileage. So I put that on it and they started to leak. I tried to rebuild the front shock absorbers, they leaked. So I said, this car is too important. I've got tons of money and time in it. I just want to bite the bullet and buy a brand new set of front shock absorbers. And then I also realized there's an uprated version, which apparently is 25% stiffer. So I said, I'll go for that. However, with the border closed, I usually order parts through Jeff Zorn and go pick them up at his house in Farmington Hills and bring them back. Usually I'm not charged any duty or sales tax or anything. So it's relatively cheap. With the border closed, I couldn't get over there. So last year I ordered about $400 worth of parts and had them sent FedEx. And then of course it goes through customs and everything else. The $400 ended up costing me about $650 by the end. So totally not worth it. So I checked all the Canadian suppliers and front shock absorbers, nobody has any. The ones that I can find are rebuilt ones that you got to send your old one. And of course it costs a fortune to ship the old one. So I'm trying to find a source for at least the shock absorbers. So my friend Dave Hornby buys parts from England direct often. So I checked Moss UK, they're out of stock. I checked Rimmer Brothers, they have them. And when you've converted to Canadian, they're about $350 Canadian each for brand new ones, which is probably cheaper than buying them in Moss US and converting, but it's just a matter of shipping. Sometimes when you get stuff from England direct, they have a way of not getting charged duty or taxes. So my last resort is I'm just going to call Rimmer Brothers and say, how much will it cost to ship two shock absorbers with duty? And is there a chance that I won't get charged duty or all the taxes? See what they say. And while I'm at it, for the last 20 years, I wanted to change the seat belts on my 72, you know, with the 3-point retractable ones. And every time I go look at buying new seat belts, they want a fortune for it, and it's still up there. So in the States, they're ranging about $200 each. Rimmer Brothers have them for like 120. So I'm going to say, well, how about the seat belts while I'm at it? So anyway, I just wondered if anybody had any thoughts on sourcing specifically front shock absorbers, new ones.
Gosh, I always get them rebuilt. I'm looking at one in a return box to go back to Peter and Jane Caldwell at Worldwide Imports in Madison, Wisconsin.
Oh, okay, I could check with them. It's just a matter of, like, I got about 6 old ones I could send, but it'll cost like $120 shipping to ship old ones back. I could ask them how much just the straightaway rebuilt ones. And
is the border open now?
Well, it's open, but you can only go if you're triple vax, which I am. But when they first did it, you didn't need to have a test if you just went there and back.
Okay, all right.
They changed that back again with Omicron. So now if I just went to Jeff's house, didn't stop anywhere else and come back, I still got to get a test. So that's another hassle. So maybe that won't last long. I can wait it out.
It's got to come to an end here. I mean, it's
Can
got to
you-
come to an end, but I always
Can
get them.
you UPS them over and not declare the value?
No, you can't. As
Yeah,
soon
but you
as
can give it a very low value.
uh, no, you got it. They get your receipt, and even if you fudge the receipt, like they'll, I can get a receipt for a small portion of the thing, but by the time you pay the shipping, the duties,
Oh, no. it's
taxes,
gonna cost.
because when I buy them directly from Jeff, I go right across to his house, and it costs me $10 for the tunnel each way,
Right.
and about $20 worth of gas, and then I fill up for gas over there while it's cheaper. So by the time I'm done, when I go through the border, they ask, "What do you got?" I said, "Oh, I got $300 worth of British car parts." They say, "Go ahead." So I'm not paying anything. So
I was just gonna, sorry, I was just gonna mention Dale, and you might have already reached out to them. I'm just down the road from you in London.
okay,
Have you tried places like Obsolete and Peninsula,
Yeah.
and I think it's British Autosport, Fred, near Hamilton?
I've tried Peninsula and I've tried Obsolete, and they don't have any in stock.
Got it.
Excuse me a second.
Everywhere you try, out of stock, because they're probably in the same boat. They can't get them either.
Yeah.
What
No,
about
I will say
what
I
about
did.
Fred?
Oh, yeah.
What about Fred?
Fred,
Fred's just outside Hamilton, near
Correct.
Ancaster.
Yes,
What's the name of his company?
I think it's
British
British Auto.
Autosport.
Okay, I'll
Have you
check that
guys
one.
tried shipping that, and when you fill out your custom form, is putting antique car parts on there? Because they're usually duty free.
Well, that could save like another $50. But then the shipping and then the sales tax you got to pay also. And don't forget, we're 13% sales tax. Whereas if I just go over and get them, there's zero cost. But I'll check this place in Hamilton, even if Obsolete and Peninsula had it, each of them are like 2 or 3 hour car drive. I just drive up and get them. But the trouble is most people don't have them in stock right now. They're probably in one of those containers stopped in the Suez Canal.
I was going to say I had ordered, I'd put in an order while I was waiting to put mine in storage a couple of months ago from Moss. And
Yeah.
about a month later, I still hadn't received them. And when I called to check in, I had to actually call US Post. And they said they were basically sitting in Los Angeles waiting to clear customs. And I
Yeah.
thought, it doesn't make sense. They're not coming from offshore or anything like that.
Yeah.
But eventually they showed up and there was no customs charged. So
Yeah. Well, you never know
Who
what
knows?
they charge them. I'm
yeah,
gonna
but
keep
I
trying.
think what Fred does in the Hamilton area is he orders from Moss. So
Yes.
basically whatever you can get from their catalog, you can get from him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Although
Yes.
by the
Yes.
time you get any British car
Yes.
parts in Canada from Moss, by the time everybody adds on their markups, it ends up being much more expensive than just buying it directly from England.
Well,
So
you should also try Drake in Kelowna. I've gotten several parts from Drake, and he always charges a pretty fair price.
Okay,
And shipping from Kelowna to where you are is not that expensive.
no. And do you know the name of his company?
It's called Drake British Motors.
Okay, I'll check those too. Thanks for the help. I'll So let you even,
uh,
know. Now, don't
even-
forget, I've been working on this car for 10 years. So if it takes me another 6 months, I still got shocks on it. So it's rolling now. Good. I'd like to John- finish the whole front end again.
But even Peter Caldwell, my go-to guy for rebuilding shocks, because why buy a new one if you can get a
Right.
one that's perfectly good rebuilt?
Yeah.
There's some special seals in those that are only, that's the only place in the world anyone uses that seal is for his shock. And last year, I don't know, must have been around this time, I know I talked to Jane or Peter, one of them, and they said, yeah, he said, I got 2,000 of these seals on order and they're not in yet. Well, they eventually came in, but anyway.
John, could you say again the name and the contact info for the guy that does your shocks? You said Peter
Yes.
Caldwell.
Worldwide Imports in Madison, Wisconsin.
it's the name of the proprietors are Peter and Jane Caldwell, CALDWELL.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. He also he's got a some kind of BMC commercial truck with a 6-cylinder engine in it that's powered with 1 inch and a quarter SU. It's an Australian truck. He's a real interesting guy. I saw that at an MGA meet. So
Test, John, can you hear me?
yes,
Oh, thank you. Oh, my goodness. John Gary Greenspoon in Victoria.
yes.
So regarding bringing things into Canada, I just learned recently of a company at our local airport in Sydney, 20 miles north of Victoria. The company there is called Skywings. And so you can order something to Blaine, Washington. Now I'm giving the example here to do with the gentleman back east. There might be a similar company at his local airport. So what this company does, and it's very reasonable, you send it to a receiving address. They go down once a day. They charge you $25 per load and $5 per kilo. Very reasonable. And in terms of customs clearance, you don't have to pay any brokerage.
No, it's not the broker. You usually don't have to pay brokerage if you
let me say this for other Canadians who don't know. Okay, how to avoid brokerage fees. Okay,
yeah,
John. Okay, how Canadians how to avoid brokerage fees. John, should I proceed?
Sure. No, just make it brief. Yeah, sure.
Yes, yeah. Here we go. Here's how you avoid brokerage fees, which, as Canadians know, are killers. Is that you need access to a customs house. So here in Victoria, I'm lucky that when the item arrives at the airport, the delivery company, like whatever, notifies you, and they send you an email with the form. You bring that form down to customs, they stamp it, and there's no brokerage, and then you send a picture of that form, and your thing gets cleared.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Gary.
You're very welcome. Enjoy. Thanks for doing it.
Yeah.
I was just in Victoria last Thursday night. I flew home yesterday after a month.
You should have called me.
Yeah.
Where were you flying from? Tonga?
No, I went from Victoria to Vancouver, Vancouver to Toronto, and Toronto to Windsor.
Oh gosh.
It took about 14 hours from start to finish.
Oh my gosh.
My wife does the same thing this Thursday. So anyway, thanks for everybody.
I flew from Grand Rapids to Halifax a couple of years ago. I went to a British car meet there, was invited to attend. And so I got to the Lester Pearson Airport, is that right, in Toronto, and
yes,
boy, what a hub! And then we got on this prop, I'm sure the jet prop, but geez, these propellers were 15 feet in diameter, only one per side on the car on the plane. And we flew all day, all day to get to Halifax. Oh my gosh. Anyway, here, let's go. Don Bueller. John, the SU carbs are aluminum. My experience is using the wrong screw may have rethreaded using the wrong screw can rethread the stuff inside the carburetors. The carb seems to work, however. What are the consequences? None. And if you've used a slightly wrong screw, and it's just fastening something on, it isn't going to make any difference. You just want to use something that looks nice and is attractive. So, what year and model do you have, Don Bueller? No Don. So.
Oh wait, sorry there, John. I was on mute.
Oh, all right. Okay. So,
yeah. I have a 52 MG TD, and we've played around with those SU carbs for years, mainly
trying to hold the little bottles on top, putting all sorts of screws in there and I found, since you guys are talking about screws that, a nice coarse screw held the bottles on the SUs on really tightly and
Yeah,
and they
those
seem to
are
work.
3/16 Whitworth, which are the same as an American 1024. So that's in that, I mean, what are you gonna do, So, and you can always use a drop or two of Loctite if the screws want to rattle out of there, if the threads are so buggered up. Loctite's just glue, and you can glue those things in place. So, okay, where are you calling from?
From Salt Lake City, Utah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. It's really nice out here with the pollution and fog in the valley, but the skiing is wonderful up in the mountains.
What's that lake smell like during the winter?
It's not too bad right now, as long as the wind's not coming from the west. And
okay,
but they've cleaned that up. Hey, John, I noticed you're wearing a different pair of glasses. What's the reason?
Oh, these are my reading glasses.
Okay.
So, yep.
You don't look like John Lennon anymore.
Oh, no, haven't looked like him for a long time.
Yeah, my daughter would always ask why, my granddaughter anyway. But hey, it's really good to be on the call again. Everyone gives us so much information. It's really wonderful.
It's a real nice place to exchange ideas.
Yeah, it is. Thank you, John.
Okay, and here we come, Crystal Johnson. While replacing a ring gear, I don't understand what it means in the manual when it says, while replacing the flywheel, ensure the 1 and 4 timing marks are in line with and on the same side as the first and fourth throws of the crankshaft. Yeah, I can understand why that would be confusing. So there's an inherent balance. There's a factory balance done with the ring gear and the crankshaft. Excuse me, the flywheel and the crankshaft. So to make sure that you get the crankshaft on the correct way every time, they put a 1/4 on the circumference of the flywheel. You'll see it when you turn the flywheel and you'll find that. So you put the number 1 and number 4 pistons topmost and put the flywheel on with that 1/4 at 12 o'clock at the topmost. So the 1/4, the number 1 and the number 4 pistons are all topmost. Easy as that.
But when I'm looking at the,
I just lost some of your audio.
can you hear me now?
Come a little closer to your microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. When I go to take a look at the flywheel to the crankshaft has got a pin. Okay. I don't understand how I could mount the flywheel any different because there's a guide pin.
What year is your car?
Well, the car is a 1970 Roadster, but the engine is an 18V.
Only in 1980 did they take 2 pins out and only leave 1, meaning that you can only put the flywheel on in one rotation, in one correct rotation. Finally, by 1980, they got it. So if you got just 1 locating pin, game's up. You don't have to worry about the 1/4. But if you do look at it, you do take out the take out the number 1 or number 4 spark plug and turn the engine over so use a screwdriver to feel for it or something or other. And if the head's on, and feel when that piston is topmost, then when you put the crank on, and you can only put it on one way, if it's a 1980 engine, an 18V883, is that what yours is, maybe?
The engine itself is an 18 Victor 672. So it's,
Well, that's an
I'm thi-
earlier, that's
I would say a 71 or 72.
let me look in I'm the only one left with my tech book. But anyway, I have a decoder inside there. Just a second. 672, I think is 74.
Okay, could be.
18B, 673. No, and it doesn't list it. Isn't that fascinating? Why doesn't it, did I get a 673? Did you say 673 or 674?
672.
Oh, excuse me, 7374 USA Federal Spec. Yep. So it's a 1973 or 74 MGB engine.
Okay, well, what happened was I had the engine rebuilt. When the engine came back from the shop that rebuilt it, I looked at the ring gear and the ring gear was all chewed up. And I went, the ring gear has to be replaced. All right, I asked several other people and they went, yeah, the teeth are really chewed. So I took the ring gear, the flywheel off, right, from the newly rebuilt engine, worked at getting the ring gear off, and I got it off after finally doing some magic work to it. Then I tried, but before I took the flywheel off, I made sure that the 1 in 4 marking was at the 12 o'clock position. And then on the flywheel, I marked with the black magic
Yes,
marker the top of the flywheel so that I knew when I put it back on, you know, the top was to the top. But when I read the manual, I'm going, well, gee, I don't know what that 4th throw meant. You know, I don't, so I'm going, if I put it back the way it was, I should be safe. But the shop that rebuilt the engine screwed up on my flywheel. So I went, maybe they didn't do a good job on that throw thing. So I was just checking. Anyway, make a long story short, I can't get the ring gear back on because I can't get it up to temperature. So,
well, if you
get out,
if you can get it to about 300 degrees, so you should be able to put it in your oven and put the oven on 400 degrees. We used to heat them up until it would melt solder, and the solder melts certainly by 400 degrees. But remember that, so this is like doing this inside your kitchen. Now, this is safe, but I always use a torch, just going round and round, and oxyacetylene torch. And then I'd go round and round and round. And once the ring gear actually would melt solder, then I knew it was hot enough to go on. And the flywheel only goes on, or the ring gear only goes on one way.
exactly.
Chamfer.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Okay,
Right.
good. Okay.
And I had, now, according to the manual, it's got to get to 300 to 400 degrees, but that's Celsius. Fahrenheit is 650 to 750 degrees.
Oh, I don't think it has to get that hot.
Oh, well, I used a pizza oven, which can get to 650. And with the ring gear in the pizza oven, all right, and I used a gun and the ring gear said 630 degrees.
Oh my gosh.
And it would not go over the lip on the flywheel. All right.
So we got the wrong ring gear, which would be pretty bizarre, or the ring gear was made wrong.
Well, it's a repro from Moss, so China.
But it's real close, right? I mean, we're not off by a quarter of an inch. I mean,
no, it's real close. And when I pulled it out of the pizza oven and I laid it on there, it almost made it. But
oh my gosh.
You know, so I mean, I finally surrendered and I called an MG shop down, which is about 2 hours from me. And they said, no problem, give it to us and we'll put it on. So I finally surrendered, but I'm still was confused on that throw with the 1 in 4. But now I understand. That makes sense.
Okay, good, good. And you're from the greater Houston area? Where are you from?
I'm actually in Central Texas, so if you put your finger on Houston, Dallas, and Austin, I'm right smack in the middle of all of those.
Okay, all right.
2-hour drive for everybody.
And what's your temperature today?
We hit a high today of 48. So we are on a cold spell here.
Well, I
Normally
guess.
we're at 60.
Oh my gosh. Okay, all right. Here we got from Rick. Okay, here we got a good one. What about the rear hub nut for a 56 MGA? It's octagonal. Any tricks? You got to have a socket. You got to have a socket to do it. And Rick, are you still on with MGA? Rick? All right, so there was a factory tool. You can buy that factory tool from Moss. Geez, for a one-time use, that seems crazy. I can't for the life of me remember how big that is, but it's really weird. It's like 1 in 15/16 or something. I mean, it's just, you'll never ever find a socket that's going to fit it. So we ended up buying a square socket and using a die grinder and opening up two sides. And we had a square socket that would fit that octagon nut, and it fit it really nicely. Remember that those tighten in the direction of wheel rotation. I have seen people take a chisel, and this is so crude, but if you got to get it done and you don't have the socket, and take a chisel and just tunk, and it'll start to move. That's just so tacky. Don't let anybody know I told you to tell you to do that. But you know, I mean, you got to get it done. So I don't know what size 12-point socket would fit that and not slip. You got to have the right tool, and it is available out and about. If you got an MG shop that's not too far away from you, maybe you can, with $20, encourage them to spend your $20 for adult beverages while you use their tool. I don't know. Okay.
Can I talk?
Yeah. Vern.
Yeah, Notestein in Frankenmuth, Michigan.
Yes,
100
sir.
miles north of. Hello, John. I have an aftermarket, I think it's aftermarket hardtop for an MGB Roadster, which I since sold the Roadster, the car, but I have the hardtop, but I have two other MGB Roadsters also. Will that hardtop fit any year of MGB Roadster?
Yes.
Thank you. Nice talking with you.
Pleasure.
That's the answer I wanted.
It's an easy answer. Okay.
Do I need a cutting torch for it to fit?
Nope. You may have to fiddle fart around a little bit, but all the
Good.
tops are interchangeable.
Thank you.
Okay.
I need it this time of year.
I guess. Absolutely. Yeah, you guys used to come over for our birthday party, but we haven't had a birthday party in a couple of years. I think maybe I'll have one
I
next
miss it.
year. Yeah, I think maybe
Cool.
next year. Now, this is a weird one, but we always had our birthday or shop birthday party on the Saturday closest to the 25th of January, because I opened my shop for full-time business January 25th, 1975. So as time went on, you know, we used to have a little birthday party at the house and so forth. And pretty soon it became a thing with customers. And we clean up the shop and make it a real showcase or have a real good time. We'd have, depending on the snow and the storms and everything, you might have, as few as 50 and as many as pushing 200 people. In the middle of February, Barney came up one time in his MGA, all covered in snow. Oh, but he wasn't, the car was, all the spokes were just jam full of snow. So we had a really, really good time. Well, when we closed the shop, when my wife was ill, and then she passed away on January 12th. and we had to wait a certain amount of time to get family and everything together. Turns out her funeral was on the same weekend that we would have had a shop birthday party, which is this coming weekend, which is the same weekend my son is getting married. So it turns out in this little family that's a pretty important date. But I think I'll certainly have a birthday party in 2025. So certainly that. And I heard some rumblings from Canada about somebody that wanted to put together a maybe not a too complicated one, but some sort of summer University Motors summer party reunion. I just heard about this, so I don't know where that's going yet, but I'll let everybody know when it comes. All right, let's see. On to Dave. Dave, with on a 70 MGB, the choke cable used to stay out after turning the knob, but it's no longer holding. Is there any adjustment, or does the cable need to be replaced entirely? Probably the cable has to be replaced entirely. The original cables were really good. There were some intermediate cables that came through the supply line that locked one or two times and then didn't lock at all. You can enhance the locking nature of the cable by not locking it down underneath the bonnet until you've turned the cable, put a 90-degree bend in the inner cable, and spin it 3 or 4 times anti-clockwise. So that tends to make the cable on the dash want to turn clockwise. So it wants to lock, but if it's not locking, it's going to lock. So the poor man solution is to put a couple of clothespins, you know, the squeezy clothespins in your console, and pull the choke all the way out and mount 3 clothespins on it. And then after it runs for a while, take 1 clothespin off. And, I mean, there's always a way to do it. But changing that cable, changing a choke cable on an MGB, oh my gosh. Maybe I'll talk about that next time, but you got to take the heater control off, which is immediately beneath that. So you can get up behind the cable and get a wrench, a 3/4 wrench on that nut. And of course, any wrench that's 3/4 is like that long. And how are you going to get that underneath the dash? So there are tricks. There are tricks about getting that done, and have a real short wrench to do it. So I'll try to remember that for next time. Dave, can you give a suggested list of nut, bolt, and screws to have on hand for a TD?
Yeah, I just bought a TD, and I've got a twin cam, a B, and a C. I've always wanted a TD. I bought one, and I like having an inventory of bits for it. And going through the parts list, it's not very easy to assemble a list of handy things.
No, it's and it's if you want to get the BSF nuts and bolts to keep the car correct, oh my gosh, between the nut and the bolt, it's like $2.50.
Oh, I know.
Extremely expensive, which is why lots of T-types, where, you know, if you got a bolt that's threaded into the frame, like on the front fender, you know, it's threaded the frame, you got to use a BSF bolt in there. But the 3 bolts that hold the rear of the fender to the front of the running board, you can use American nuts and bolts in there, unless the goal is to be original, and then it's $2.50 a hit. I don't have.
It's rogered up already, so I'm not terribly worried about it.
Okay, all right.
Where I need it, I want it.
You sure got to have a BSF tap and die set, a metric tap and die set that includes that 8x1.00 for the engine, and a full set of British spanners, wrenches, and sockets.
Yeah, I got the wrenches and the sockets. I've probably bought about $50 worth of hardware so far.
Okay.
And every time I need something, it ain't something I have.
John, this is
Yes.
Judd. On the, I believe it's the MG Enthusiast site, a guy named Bud Kruger runs something called TT Type or T-Type 2. Anyway, several of them have published. I've got a couple of sheets of every fastener on the T-Type and what the original nut bolt screw or whatever it was. So if Dave will explore that that site, MG Enthusiast, it's the one that's out of England. And if he needs to send you something and send it to me, and I will send him a link to that, because I haven't found anything on my TD that wasn't on that list.
Judd, boy, that's great information. Thank you. And I'll look for it. And if I can't find it, I'll give John a shout.
That'd be
Okay.
great.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Thanks, guys. One last thing, John, are you going to Colorado Springs next summer?
Absolutely.
See you there.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I want Colorado Springs. My great grandmother died there in 1898. And so I wanted to go see where it was. So I looked up the address, and now it's part of a university, or I don't know. I mean, it must have been just a house that got swept away in some urban renewal thing so many years ago. And I'm also a coin collector, and that in Colorado Springs is the headquarters of the American Numismatic Association. So I want to spend a day there. So yeah, it's going to be fun. Looking forward to it.
Judd, thank you.
All right, from Jonathan Graboff, what screws are used to hold the two sections of the steering column cowl pieces together? Okay, so Jonathan, what year and model do you have? Are you still on?
Yes,
you're
I'm
there.
here. 68 MGB GT.
Okay, so there are two screws that are fitted in from the left-hand side, and those are 1032s, Phillips head, about an inch, it's certainly an inch long. Then to the rear of that, opposed, are two very short screws. Those are 1024 Phillips head screws that go into some little brackets that come off. Almost everybody leaves those out. They're just awful to get back in. You don't need them. But the two screws that are put in from the left-hand side, just behind the turn signal switch, those are the 1032s.
Hey, can I ask you one other question while I got you here? I just had an interesting experience trying to replace a gas tank sending unit. Got one from Moss, put it in, red empty. Put some gas in, still red empty, and I thought, well, I never checked this unit before I put it in on a multimeter. So I pulled it out, and the arm that holds the float wasn't there. It had fallen off the unit and dropped into the tank. Today I went over to the AutoZone, and they had a loaner inspection camera that I stuck in the gas tank and found the thing and was able to fish it out. The Moss was gracious enough to send me a replacement for nothing, which I appreciated, which I got today, and I put it in, and I put 5 gallons of gas in the tank, and it's reading about 1/8 of a tank. Do you find that you have to bend the arm that holds the float in order to get a more accurate reading?
You still have your original fuel sending unit?
No, it was totally kaput. We actually had a conversation about this on the phone. The arm was frozen. With a little persuasion, I was able to get it to move, but then put it on the multimeter, and with the arm all the way up, I was getting full resistance, drop it down 1/4 inch and went to 0. So I knew the unit was shot.
Yeah, because you can fix those old units, and they work a lot better than the new ones.
Everything all the originals work better than the new ones, but I was just wondering, do you find you have to bend the arm to adjust to where the float?
I'm not sure that's going to take care of it. You might take it back out again and see if the float is a float or a sink. Because if the new float perforates and gasoline gets in it, obviously it isn't going to rise up as much as it should. If you put your multimeter on it, help me out, that runs from about 0 to 80 ohms through the full sweep, or does it move all up to 200? I can't remember. This is embarrassing. I can't remember.
Well, I don't remember what setting I had my multimeter on, and I think it was running up to about 32. Does that sound right? And then down to now you're putting me on the spot because I don't really accurately remember. It just looked like it went up all the way and then it went down all the way with the sweep of the arm, so I thought it was okay.
Yep. So either it's not okay and the windings are buggered up, the resistance is wrong, or the float isn't floating.
Okay.
But in any case, you get to take it out again. We found when we changed those, we jacked the car up on the right-hand side. I mean, get it up on an angle, just dramatically, so all the gasoline ran over to the driver's side. And then you could tunk that ARA 1501 triangular circle thing out of there. And when you do put that back in, just grease it up. Take that, grease up the sending unit, grease up that black rubber thing, grease up the ring, grease it all up so that when you're tunking at it, it slides really easily, because the whole point there is to gain compression so it won't leak out.
Are you talking about greasing the inside of the unit or the outside of the unit?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. So
any place, on the inside of the gas tank where the sending unit goes and fits up against, and then the outside of the sending unit where the black rubber seal goes, and then the other side of the black rubber seals and the face of that triangular ring that goes in and locks.
The locking ring, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okie doke.
Hey, John, I'd like to chime in.
Yeah.
Hey, I've had some experiences with the aftermarket sending units. One is the float is not the shape the way, the new floats are rectangular and flat rather than round.
No, this one is round.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
And you might want to check to make sure there's no interference with the length of the arm where the float may be hitting the baffle in the tank. I had that happen to me one time.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if that's the case, you have to figure a fix somehow, some way, if you're using the unit that you're gonna, the one you have. I bought 3 different ones to fix the job I was on. Yeah. And I forget who it was, but somebody there's a fellow down there somewhere, he's a Moss distributor who sells a different sending unit, and I think he's in Georgia. Bob, do you know who that might be? Bob Cook?
The Beehive?
Wasn't that you that was telling me about the new sending unit?
I got a new sending unit, but I got it from Moss for my new gas tank. But I think the Beehive is down south somewhere. He's a Moss distributor.
The arm on this sending unit, it was for an MGB, and it was a 1/2 inch shorter. So I just wanted to share all that with you guys. And
well, thanks. I think
all aftermarket sending units are not the same.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah. No,
Good luck to you there.
I was disappointed that the original was non-functional because I've just had a lot of issues with.
So call Paul Deershaw, it's Sports Car Craftsman in Arvada, Colorado. We're back to Colorado, Arvada, Colorado, Sports Car Craftsman, and tell him that you want a used MGB gasoline sending unit for your car, And when you get it, you take the cover, pry the cover off it and look at it. And the most common fault is simply that the resistance wire breaks. And you can take a piece of copper wire and put it, because you can't solder resistor wire, but if you loop the resistor wire around and through a little loop of copper wire, you can put a dot of solder on it and it'll hold it, and your sending unit will work like it's supposed to. So that's an option too.
Okay.
Okay, all right. So here we got another one here, and this is George. What size is the adjustment screw on the rear brakes on the 73 MGB? And is there any common ratchet socket that would fit? 1/4 inch. That's this, it's a square socket, 1/4 inch square socket. So there's an air conditioning tool that's got a ratchet on it. That's one side's 5/16. You can use that on your midget. The other side's 1/4. In the thread that's in there is probably 3/8 24, but that's not what you're asking. It's a 1/4 inch square. So when I was doing brakes on hoist, I had my square socket and I had my flexible U-joint on it. And then I had about a 2-foot extension, and I put a ratchet on the end of it, put that onto the back of the adjuster, unscrew it all the way, grease it up, screw it back in until you can't turn it anymore. Don't break it off. You can do that if you try. And then unscrew it 1/4 turn by 1/4 turn until the drum just runs free, making sure the whole time that the handbrake is off. The cable isn't stuck or something. So anyway, that's 1/4 inch.
I'll just mention, that's one of the things that I just bought from Moss. It's about $10.
Okay.
Can't you just turn a 1/4 inch drive socket around and use that square hole to do it?
If I can weigh in on that, you get a short extension, 1/4 inch drive extension with a square hole goes over top, and then I think it's a 7/16 12-point socket. You can either use a 3/8 drive or a 1/4 inch drive, and you can adjust your brakes with that, and it works good. I read that, it's not my idea, I read it on a tech tip, and I thought I'd try it. It works good.
So there are lots of ways to skin this cat.
I'll just mention, I loosened mine once with a trim removal tool that just happened to have a 1/4 inch square at the end, but after doing it once or twice, it ended up chewing up the tool. So I've now bought the right wrench.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I talk?
Okay. All right, good night, Vern. If somebody wants that hard top for an MGB, Vern's over in the greater Detroit area. He won't admit that. He's way north of there, but if you're not from Michigan, if you say east side of the state, that's where you end up, so.
No, I didn't want to sell it, John. I didn't know which car it would fit on.
Oh, that's right. Excuse me.
If I could talk on gas tanks, maybe off the subject, Renew in Swartz Creek, Michigan does gas tanks. On a Morgan, the gas tank is rectangular and the factory baffle had broke loose from the factory spots. New gas Swartz, Michigan repaired baffle in the gas tank without taking the gas tank apart. Sounded like magic to me.
So Swartz Creek, Renew. Sounds like a good place.
RNU, west of Flint, Michigan, Swartz Creek, Burb. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Vern. All right, we're right at 9, but we'll take a couple more here. From Skip, any recommendations for a modern fuse block conversion for my 67B? Use the original one. I'm converting to negative ground with a Lucas alternator, reusing the wiring harness, and when Moss restocks the dummy voltage regulator, I can finish up the wiring. Well, you can gut the existing voltage regulator, and you can make the wiring go from your alternator with the wiring that went down there for the generator. And I've gutted a perfectly good 3 bobbin control box before, so that it was working correctly. But I wouldn't get a modern fuse block for your car. The original fuse block is just fine. And most fuse boxes are just fine if you clean them up, sandblast them, or clean them up with Brasso, something like that. Get them nice and clean. You don't need, I mean, you can argue that you should fuse the taillight circuit. That gives trouble, but nothing else does. You don't need a different one. Are you still on here, Skip? So anyway, right out, going back to the threads, what thread and head size is the through bolt on my distributor clamp on my MGA or my MGB? Okay, so there's a transverse bolt that clamps the distributor in place. Originally, that's 1/4 inch BSF. Then it changes to 1/4 inch 28 American. It's 1/4 26 to start off with. And then at some point, I'm not sure when, it goes to 1/4 28.
Thank you.
And if you buy a new one that comes with the new Pertronix distributors, which I'd caution about buying because of their advanced specifications, that's got about a 6 millimeter bolt on it. So then you got to get out metric tools. And
I have tools, but I'm not planning on a Pertronix. Thank you.
Okay, all righty. So we'll take the, we got the push rods and the correct, Steve Olson. The electronic ignition in my TR8 failed intermittently. The fine wires connecting the pickup to the external amp were worn and parted. Ran perfectly till things warmed up. Then you might stall, or worse, just get a delay signal, and took forever to diagnose. Jeff provided a new distributor, and that works great, Jeff Schlemmer. So Steve Olson, thank you for that. So all kinds of weird things can happen.
Yeah, but before I figured out that it was just delaying the timing, I'd also changed the radiator and tried a lot of others, spent a lot of other money before I got the real problem solved.
Yep. Yep.
So electronic doesn't necessarily work or not work. In this case, it sort of worked for a while.
Okay, that's one of the first ones I've ever heard about this.
Pertronix is all inside, so it can't.
Right. Well, the original Opus on the the original Opus, those would work, and then they wouldn't work, and then they'd work, and they'd not work. The people would haul them into the dealer, and the dealer would start them 38 times over a course of 3 days. A perfect new owner get in it, drive 2 minutes, fail again. And the dealer in the dealer network was instructed not to allow that there was a problem with them. Oh my gosh. So yeah, those were different, but those are all gone. So that's why I say it either works or it doesn't. But thank you for that. Well, hey, we're down to the end here. We're starting to lose some people. So it's 9:13. Doug Clark, our official counter. What do we have tonight, Doug?
185.
185 tonight. Hey, that's really great. And I've putting this on the same piece of paper that I got Duralast from AutoZone. I'm going to text my daughter right when we get off here, so she knows what to get. Anyway, everyone, you can unmute yourselves. We can just chat here for a minute. It's always a pleasure to check in with everybody and So that's a nice looking car there, Greg. We got the Greg Fisher. We're on the outside of the house now. Oh my gosh, it looks real sweet out there. How nice is that, huh? Ron Nugent, that's something to go for there. You guys are still like 1,000 miles away, but you both live in the, no, you're not that far. Close. Yeah. So.
John, I heard somebody say something about seatbelts. We were having a hard time getting a decent price on, just went on eBay, typed in 74 MGB and got a set of seatbelts. You could return them if you didn't like them, and they work fine. I wish I have written down the company, but everything changes on eBay anyhow, but it was a better price than we saw anywhere else. So
Thanks, Ron. I'll try that too. Never thought of eBay.
I love fixed seat belts. I do not like retractable seat belts. It depends on the type of driving you're doing and stuff. But when I'm driving my MGA, I want my torso to be one with the seat. So I've got a 3-point system on my MGA, and that leaves my 4 limbs free to shift, steer, accelerate, and clutch. I love to be just trapped, just sucked back into the seat and held fast. I just feel safer like that. But those 3-point belts, of course, are a lot less expensive than, or 3-point fixed, a lot less expensive than retractable belts.
Yeah, John, my 69 has the fixed 3-point belts that you unclip at the back.
Oh yeah, okay.
And I like them, but my 72 has retractable, so but you know, the webbing starts fraying on the side. And I've heard people will take it all apart and get new webbing. Said, I'm 70 years old. I got more important things to do with my time than doing that.
I just re-webbed my seat belts on my MGA because they were, I nicked them out of Austin, America in 1972. No, when did I do that car? 1980. So we had the boxes of old seat belts, and they were out of an Austin, America, with the Kangol magnetic seat belts with a little decal on them that says BMC. And I just wanted to keep those. So yeah, I spent half a day taking them apart very carefully, and then took them to my upholstery guy, and he stitched it all back in. I thought, am I going to get crazy enough? Am I going to send all these ends out and have them re-chromed? And I thought, no, I'm not going to be that crazy. I cleaned them up, but they got them all stitched back up, and it worked great.
Hey, John, what?
Sorry.
Mike,
where's Colorado Springs? When's Colorado Springs happening?
I don't have my calendar here, but it's like June 20th. Does that make sense? Or June 5th? Barney, are you still here? You have your calendar out? This the MG, it's a GT 37, I think, or 47. I don't know.
It's like the first full week of June.
Okay, all right.
Perfect. I'll find it. Thank you.
Yeah, under NAMGAR, NAMGAR. Yep. So
John, Ed Hurst, if I can slip in one more quick question.
Yeah.
How can one best remove the headliner, the ceiling liner in a GT without damaging it?
You can't. You cannot. So what my daughter did, hers was okay. It was undamaged. Well, I mean, it looked like shit. I mean, it was just awful. So she sent off and got some kind of primer and upholstery, that really a light gray. It's not white, it's extremely light gray, and laid on her back inside the car and sprayed the whole thing, and then waited for it to dry and put the final coat on it. But that's what she did.
So what I'm trying to do is strip this thing completely so I can, as we talked about earlier, get it blasted and cleaned up down to metal. Would you suggest that I not go that far with the interior and leave that headliner in?
You can blow the sand out of the headliner because it's not going to get up around there. That's all those pieces are wrapped around and everything. That's quite a task. So if you get your car as much of it as you want to get sandblasted, you can sure tell the guy to mask off and avoid getting it up in there, because that's what we did. There's pieces that fabric that covers the whole surround as it goes up to the top. And I thought about taking that stuff out, and then I thought, oh, what am I? Yeah, what was Dale's line? I'm 73 and I got better things to do with my life than to reinstall a headliner. Yeah. Yeah.
John, it's
Okay,
Mike
thank
Green.
Yes.
I have quite a few questions, but could I possibly
Yes.
send an email to you?
Oh,
Certainly.
yeah, or you can just ask here. What year and model do you have, Mike?
76 MGB.
Where are you calling from?
From Baltimore area, place called Lutherville, just north of Baltimore in
All right.
Maryland. On the fan systems, I've played with it over the years and had some heating, got some problems resolved there. But the question I have was, should the fan in the summertime on the East Coast in the hot summer be a push or pull toward the engine? Would you recommend blowing the air from the engine compartment onto the fan, or would
This
you
is
recommend-
76 MGB,
Yeah,
but you've got an engine cooling fan, right? A great big.
That's- yeah. Well, I bought a large assembly fan that's bolted on. I didn't put the shroud in, but I mounted a fan on the inside of the rad, and I blow air with the electric power with an on-off switch to try and cool the rad in the summertime.
But a 76 has got an engine-driven cooling fan.
I don't have that on my car. Or sorry, I do have it on my car, but I wanted to boost it. I wanted to improve the cooling.
Well, then I'd put a fan. If you wanted to put another fan on the car, there's not room to put it between the radiator and the engine fan. So you must put it on the forward side of the radiator, pushing through, and all those fans are reversible. It just depends on how you hook them up.
Yeah.
I think most of them are, I shouldn't say all of them, most of them are polarized. So you hook it up one way and it sucks, and then turn it up the other way it blows. So
That works fine. Do you recommend a shroud?
what kind of driving do you do? Is it all in town?
Yeah, it's all in town. It's all local. I mean, if I was to drive more than 50 miles, I'd have to cross my fingers and toes.
Well, you can make a case for a shroud on an MGB for round town use. Out on the open road, you don't need it.
Not even in the summertime?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
It's odd to have a 76B run too warmly. So how do you know the engine's running too warm?
I had some problems with the stat at one point. I put a 180 stat in and changed the coolant system, put in the right additives and everything. And then I added the fan, and I've had very little problems since then. But I think occasionally on a very hot day at a traffic light after about a 25-mile drive, an extended traffic light, I could easily foam over again. So I'm a little concerned about it. That's why I asked the question about a booster fan.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, John, Mike.
Yep.
Okay. The radiator could be compromised and you're not going to have efficient cooling. So with your fan that you've installed, that's going to help complement matters. That's one issue on an old radiator. If it's original, maybe the bottom third of it is like got debris in it, calcification.
Right.
So your radiator is still working, but it's not 100% efficient.
Should I consider? I did replace the rad, by the way, but should I put aluminum on it?
Okay.
Is there any benefit?
No,
John?
I mean, that does work. An aluminum radiator does work. I mean, everyone who's installed one said, oh my God, the problem's gone. I hate the I hate the solution because something else is going on. Either the timing's wrong and so it's the engine's producing too much heat.
John, that's what happened to me. You told me I tried everything. I tried changing thermostats and everything, and then you told me, I think, Pete, you could look at your timing. And I checked the timing, and yes, it was exactly that. Never
Okay, thank you.
overheated it again.
That's a good input. Thank you. The other questions are very yes and no's, John. I've always wanted to put a nice steering wheel, and one or two of the guys there had a really nice, beautiful steering wheel. And I was thinking about doing it, but do I need a lot of pulling gear to do that? And if I do, does the horn still work on these different steering wheels?
My number one video, number one YouTube video is how to remove a steering wheel.
Okay.
Using two people, two hammers. It works. It works every time, but you've got to follow the instructions.
Okay, I'll make that the last job I do. And then lastly, paint system, just a bit of a touch up on the hood, or the bonnet as I call it. I'm from the UK. Just do the paint job on the bonnet. Where can I find the number system? What's the best place to look for it?
There isn't. There isn't. So if you want some paint to match your vehicle, you've got to drive to a body shop and have them come out with their scanner, scan the paint that's on it, and they'll mix up some paint that is their system, their paint system tells them that that's the same color. Now, in the end, the human eye is so critical. What color is your car?
It looks like a BRG, but it's a little different, slightly different. There's so many greens. It's a
yeah.
green.
Well, that's it. That's it. That's not too hard to match.
Okay.
A green isn't hard to match. So, so just because who knows what your car really is, you know? I mean, it could be Brooklyn's green. It could be anything.
And last question. The last question. Probably everybody's had this challenge. On the carbon filter, I've not touched it since I've had the car. I got it over 20 years ago. I've never cleaned the carbon filter. I've seen your video.
You don't need to.
Cleaned it. And as I get a little bit of mist on the panel at the top of the engine occasionally, so I'm wondering if I should change the filter system out and clean it out for the emissions piece. Or is there any other thing I should be looking at?
You can always take it apart. The charcoal is just charcoal. I mean, it's either adsorbed gasoline and it's either stinks of gasoline, it's swilling in gasoline, or it's dry. You don't know, but there is a filter pad top and bottom in that can, and those can get crappy and impede the flow of fresh air through there. Where are you? Baltimore, you said?
Yeah, just north of Baltimore on around the Ring Road, a place called Lutherville.
Okay.
Just north. It's about 15 minutes from downtown.
All right, I asked because I'm going to be in DC again this springtime sometime. I popped that steering wheel off for you.
Yeah, I'd love to get you up there. I got the car from a guy who lived on the west side of Baltimore. He drove to Arkansas, Little Rock. It was the third car in Clinton's parade. So I was quite excited. But he said, as I said earlier, I had to cross my fingers and cross my toes to make sure I got it all the way back from Arkansas. So I bought it from him. It's been pretty reliable. I've done a lot of repairs over the years, but these are things that are still nudging me a little bit. And this should help me just put the final pieces together.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Well, gentlemen, ladies, it's 9:27. We still have 63 people on, although some of the pictures are static. So Vern, thank you very, very much for being on tonight. And Bobo Tanner, nice to see you there. And Doc Rosevear, it's stacked there. We got an ENT and a rheumatologist, one on top of the other. And yeah. So anyway, I thank you everyone for being on. Jim Holliday, thanks for being here tonight. Yeah, and Just looking here, some of these names I know, of course, and some people I don't know who you are, you know, so. Mr. Lefevre from Calgary, that's where the big MG meet is supposed to be next summer, I think.
In 23.
Yeah, yep. To line up with the either coming the week before or after the roundup, not the round. What do you call it? It's not the roundup.
It'll be the week after the
Stampede.
the Calgary Stampede.
Stampede. Yep. All right. Thank you. Okay. All right. Sean English. Hey, I don't have any dates yet for coming down and assembling that engine. So that's a scoop. I've got Sean English's engine in my shop, and I'm getting that prepped. And we're going to go down to Washington, D.C. once the weather's nice and COVID has suddenly and mysteriously disappeared like the Spanish flu did. And we're going to reassemble that engine down in Sean's garage. And if you want to come along and watch, it's a pay-per-view, but you know, we'll have a real good time. So lots of jokes.
Looking forward to it.
Yep, absolutely. Right. Well,
Hey, John, that Colorado show is the 6th through the 10th in the GT 47, 6th through the 10th. It's on the calendar.
oh, okay. All right. Okay. 47. I said 37. That can't be right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh.
A lot of stuff going on in June. Hellertown, Pennsylvania, that's a show, and there's a few other things going on, plus the North American show.
Yeah. I'm gonna be both at the MGB event and at the and then my nephew is getting married between the two in DR, the Dominican Republic. I'd love to go, but I can't. It's like I can't go to one MG meet and come home and go to that, and then come home and go to another one. I wouldn't be sober enough by the time I returned to go to the B event. So.
Night, John.
All right, well, everybody, it's 9:30,
John.
so thank you very kindly.
Always enjoyable.
Thank you very much, John.
Thanks a lot.
Yep.
Thanks, John. Thanks, John.
Aye.
Good night. Good night, all.
Thank
you, John. Good night. Thanks.
Good night, Barney. Thanks for being on.
Hey, coming back in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Look forward to it.